Hi, let's talk about conditional sentences. There's a lot of talk about conditional sentences. Um, I'm going to try to simplify and summarize. So, this is not every rule and every detail about conditional sentences, it's kind of an overview. A conditional sentence is a complex sentence in English that it uses the subordinator if to tell what the result will be if a condition is met. So if something happens, then what will be the result? Um, there are a few different ways that this is explained. Sometimes you'll see numbers like a 0 conditional, a 1 conditional, second conditional, or third conditional. I'm going to use real and unreal because it makes more sense to me. But if you've heard it the other way, we're going to be talking about the same thing. It just kind of has two ways of thinking about it. So we'll be talking about real conditionals, future real conditionals, present unreal conditionals, and past unreal conditionals. And if you want just one rule to remember, real and future conditionals jump 1/10 forward. Unreal conditionals jump 1/10 back. So a present real conditional will be in the past. A past unreal conditional will be past perfect. I'll give you some examples and hopefully it makes more sense. But again, conditionals are complex sentences in English that show what the result will be if a condition is met. If something specific happens, what will the result be? Let's start with present real conditionals. Present real conditionals use the simple present tense, and they talk about things that are generally true, facts, usual routines, habits, stuff like that. Pretty much the simple present of conditionals. For present real conditionals, we can use if or when as our subordinator. And both of our verbs are going to be in the simple present. We use this to show facts. We use this to show what will happen if a condition is met repeatedly. Every time this condition is met, this will be the result. If I heat water to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it boils. 100 degrees Celsius. I know this is Fahrenheit, but it's Celsius. If I heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. Every time. Every time water gets hot enough, it boils. Here's another example. He doesn't get sick if he takes his vitamins every day. Every day, repeatedly, he takes his vitamins and he doesn't get sick because of it as a result. So both of these things are generally almost always true. They're fact, they're repeated, they're everyday truths. And another thing to notice here is that whether you start with the if clause or whether you start with the result does not matter. You can switch them around. They're just like complex sentences. Just remember to put a comma after your dependent clause if you have your if first. And again, we're using the simple present. If or when, present, present. Because these are real truths, real facts. We're going to use simple present. If I heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, ignore that. If I heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. Simple present because these are true. This is a real conditional. If this real thing happens, this is the result in real life. He doesn't get sick if he takes his vitamins every day. Every day in real life, he takes a vitamin so that he doesn't get sick in real life. Let's talk about future real conditionals. So future real conditionals are used to show a likely or possible outcome. What is the future result of this condition being met in the present? So we're going to start in the present, and then the results will happen in the future. That's why it's called future real conditionals. Again, we can use if or when. If is more hypothetical, when is more planned and definite. That's the big difference. So here's an example. If she studies for the quiz, what do you think will be the result? What do you think will happen in the future if she studies for the quiz now? She will get a good grade. Okay, so my if clause states the condition. The second half, or the other one, is the result. That's what happens because of this. If she studies for the quiz, she will get a good grade. Cause effect. Here's another one. He is going to go to the beach. That's a result clause. What has to happen for him to go to the beach? He needs to get a day off. But as soon as he gets that day off, when he gets that day off, because we know it's coming, when he gets a day off, he is going to go to the beach. That's the result. So let's look at these verbs, right? We're going to use if or when. Our condition needs to be in the simple present, and our result needs to be in the future. So if she studies for the quiz, she will get a good grade, future. And our second one is flipped. So we have the result first. He is going to go to the beach, future, when he gets a day off, simple present. So those were our real conditionals. Those are things that will really happen if that condition is met. If I get water hot enough, it boils. Fact. So I'm going to use simple present because that's the verb tense we use for facts and general truths. When I get a day off, I'm going to take a trip. When I get in the present, I'm going to or I will take a trip in the future. Those are real things. If that real condition is met, that will really be the result. So let's talk about unreal. When we want to talk about things that we wish would happen, but they never will. They're imaginary, but it's still fun to talk about. Those are unreal, imaginary. And we talk about them using conditionals. So let's start with present, unreal conditionals. And when we're using unreal, the way that we tell people, we tell our listeners or our audience that this is unreal, is by moving it, shifting it back 1/10 to the past. So we use this for imaginary situations. And for present unreal, we're talking about things that they'll never happen, but it's lovely to dream about. I'll give you an example. If he won the lottery, we know that this is probably never going to happen, but it's nice to think and dream about anyway. So if he won the lottery, he would quit his job. He is not going to win the lottery. He is not going to quit his job. This is imaginary, but we want to talk about it. And the way that we make this unreal is shifting it back a tense. So if I won, past tense, the lottery, I would quit. And we put would instead of will to show that it's a little bit past. I would quit my job, but I'm not going to. Let's look at another one here. Again, we can flip them. So we can have our if conditional clause first, or we can have our result clause first. It doesn't matter. The only thing that changes is the comma. I would create a pet rescue center. This is something I really want to do. If I had the space and money, if I moved out to the country, which I probably would never do, and I had enough money to care for 15 stray cats and dogs in my big old backyard, I would. But I don't have the space, I don't have the money, I don't have the time or energy, and I am not going to create a pet rescue center. But if I want to dream about it, And I want to tell you about my imaginary dream. That's how I would do it. I would move out to the country and I would create a pet rescue center if I had the space and money and time and energy. If I had the resources, but I don't. That's why it's unreal. That's why it's imaginary. Looking at these verb tenses, I have one, past tense, right? Our if clause gets the past tense because it's unreal, so we're shifting it back to the past. If I won the lottery, if he won, he would quit his job. So we're using would instead of will because we don't want this to sound real. We don't want it to sound like something we're actually planning in the future. I would create a pet rescue center if I had the time and money. Again, would plus verb goes with the result clause. Past tense goes with the if clause. Okay, last one, we're working on past unreal conditionals. Now, this is rare, but when we want to talk about changing the past, if things had been different, this is the way that we do it. Now, this is already a past conditional, so to make it unreal, we have to go even further into the past. So we use the perfect tense. And this is what it looks like. If I had remembered in the past, so last night, maybe my phone died and I was out partying. Unreal, right? If I had remembered to call my mom, she wouldn't have been worried. But I didn't remember, or I couldn't call my mom, and my mom was very worried last night. If I could change the past, this is how I would talk about it. And if I had remembered in the past to call my mom, she wouldn't have been worried in the past. I know that I cannot change the past, which is why this is an unreal conditional, but it's sometimes nice to think about or nice to show that you have a past regret or that you wish things had been different, right? Here's another one. He would have bought a hybrid car if he had been able to afford it. This is unreal. So we know that he was not able to afford it and he didn't buy the hybrid car. But he wanted to. He thought about it, right? So here's our verbs. My if clause gets the past perfect tense, had remembered. If I had remembered to call my mom, she wouldn't have been worried. So I'm using would have and then the past participle. Let's look at another one. My result clause, the result clause, whether it's at the beginning or end, doesn't matter. The result clause gets would and then your have past participle. So he would have bought a hybrid car if he had been able to afford it. Okay, so that's our general wrap up for conditionals. Again, it's just a complex sentence that talks about something that will happen, that you wish would happen, or that you wish had happened differently in the past. You have your if clause, you have your result clause, and you switch your verb tenses around depending on your sentence's meaning. Hopefully that was helpful. Check out the other study links too, and I'll be around to answer your questions.